The lake house always felt different at dusk, but that evening it was more than just the light. My parents had driven back to the city, leaving me to help my aunt finish sorting boxes for the weekend. It was supposed to be simple: lift, label, store. But even as the sun slid behind the trees, the air inside thickened with a quiet that made every creak sound like a secret waiting to escape. Somewhere outside, a boat engine sputtered and died, leaving nothing but the smell of pine and damp wood pressing against the windows. I dropped the last box at the foot of the stairs and wiped my palms on my jeans. "All done up here?" I called out. No answer. Only the faint hum of the bathroom fan upstairs and the slosh of water. I hesitated, one hand on the banister. She must have gone to shower. I should go back to my room, maybe text my friends. Instead, I climbed step by slow step until I reached the landing. The bathroom door was open a crack. Steam curled out like smoke from a chimney. She emerged before I could turn away. Barefoot, damp hair sticking to her neck, a cream-colored robe cinched at her waist. For a heartbeat, we both froze. Her eyes found mine and held them as if she'd been waiting. She lifted one hand to tuck her hair behind her ear, and in that movement the robe slipped off one shoulder. She didn't pull it back up right away. "I didn't hear you come up," she said softly. Her voice wasn't surprised so much as careful. "You've grown taller." I swallowed, stepping aside. "Sorry. I was just looking," she interrupted. The edge of a smile touched her mouth, not quite friendly. "Then stop pretending." She drew the robe closed with a quick tug but didn't break eye contact. "Downstairs it's fine. But upstairs." She let the warning hang in the humid air. That was the first rule spoken aloud, the boundary she set even as she tested it. Upstairs was off limits. A line she'd drawn with words while her eyes said something different. My pulse hammered against my ribs. I started to retreat down the stairs, but a sound stopped me. The crunch of tires on gravel outside, a car turning into the driveway. She moved to the window and peeked through the curtain. "He's early," she murmured. "Stay quiet." "Your husband," I whispered. "No," she said, letting the curtain fall. "Just the neighbor. He likes to borrow things." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, screen lighting up with a name I didn't catch. She flipped it face down. "He won't stay long." I hovered by the doorway, heart in my throat. The sound of a car door slamming, footsteps on the porch. Voices carried faintly up the stairs. She closed the bathroom door completely now, pressing her back to it. "You should probably go," she said, but her voice was low, almost a challenge. "Unless you're going to help me with something first." Another creak from downstairs. A knock, someone calling her name. She held up a finger, signaling me to stay silent. Then she whispered, "My husband's still out of town. Don't let anyone see you here." I glanced toward the stairs. I could leave, run down past whoever was at the door, out into the twilight. But her eyes anchored me in place. She took one step closer, damp hair dripping onto the robe, scent of soap reaching me. "Stay," she said again. "Just stay." Below us, the neighbor's voice drifted off as he retreated from the porch. The car engine started. Silence returned. She reached behind her and pushed the bathroom door wider, just enough for me to see the soft light inside. "You're already here," she murmured. "Might as well finish helping." Her words landed like a hook. The house was quiet again, but the risk hadn't vanished. It had only sunk deeper into the walls. I hesitated one last time, then stepped forward as she closed the door behind me with a soft click. The power hadn't gone out, but the storm made it feel like it could at any second. The house groaned softly as the wind pressed against the windows, and a low rumble of thunder rolled in from across the lake. It was hours later now, close to midnight, and the only light downstairs came from the small under-cabinet lamp in the kitchen, casting everything in a golden haze. My aunt was barefoot again, standing at the counter in a thin, long sweater that barely touched the tops of her thighs. Underneath, a gray camisole clung to her, neckline loose. Her hair was dry now, but messy, like she'd let it air dry and never bothered with a brush. A half-finished glass of wine stood near her hand, the bottle open beside it. She didn't seem surprised to see me come down. "Can't sleep?" she asked without turning. I shrugged. "Not with that wind. And the Wi-Fi's out." She glanced back, one eyebrow raised. "That's tragic." I smiled. "Thought I'd finish those boxes. Or maybe you just didn't want to end the night like that." She said it without looking at me. I couldn't tell if it was a joke or a test. I walked farther into the kitchen. "I figured you still needed help." "I do," she said, setting down her glass. "But not with boxes." She slid a small, flat object across the counter toward me. A key. Old, silver, slightly tarnished. I picked it up, curious. "What's this for?" "The basement trunk. The one against the far wall." "What's inside?" "Stuff I haven't looked at in years," she said, pouring herself more wine. "You'll see tomorrow." She watched me over the rim of her glass. The air between us felt stretched, tight. She walked past me, brushed against my shoulder as she did, and sat down on the bench by the window. Rain tapped steadily on the glass behind her. I leaned against the counter, holding the key in my palm. "What's really in there?" She tilted her head slightly. "Things I used to care about. Things I probably shouldn't." "Then why show me?" A long pause. Her gaze didn't waver. "Because you're not a kid anymore. And you see me differently now." I felt my breath catch. Outside, a tree branch scraped hard against the siding. At the same moment, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and sighed. "My husband," she said. "Reception's cutting out, I guess." She didn't answer, just turned it face down again. I walked over and sat beside her on the bench. The room felt quieter here, more separate from the rest of the house. She didn't pull away when our legs touched. Thunder cracked, louder this time. The lights flickered. She reached for my hand, casually but didn't let go. The key was still there, warm between our palms now. "You've been looking at me differently," she said quietly. "I noticed." I didn't say anything. "And I let you." The wind howled outside, shaking the glass. The tension between us grew like something pressing from both sides. Her hand shifted, fingertips sliding along the inside of my wrist. I leaned slightly toward her, instinct pulling me closer. She turned her face toward mine, slow, deliberate, close enough for her breath to hit my cheek. Then creak. Floorboards above us. We froze. Another creak. Then muffled steps. She stood up abruptly, releasing my hand. "You need to go," she said quickly. "That's the neighbor again. He sometimes walks over to the porch if he thinks I'm alone." "What if he knocks?" "Then I'm asleep," she said, already moving toward the hallway. "But you should be gone before he looks through the window." I hesitated, then followed her to the back door. She cracked it open, glanced out. "No one yet. Hurry." I stepped out into the wind and mist, heart pounding. As I turned to go, she touched my arm. "Tomorrow morning," she said, barely audible. "Downstairs, when the house is quiet." She pressed the key back into my hand and shut the door without another word. The house was still asleep when I crept down to the basement. Morning light barely reached the narrow stairwell, and the air down there smelled faintly of damp wood and detergent. The hum of the dryer filled the silence, muffled but constant. I held the silver key tight in my hand, its edges worn smooth from years of neglect. or maybe anticipation. She hadn't texted. No call. Just the last words from the night before. Tomorrow morning, when the house is quiet. I wasn't even sure if she meant it, but I went. The trunk sat exactly where she said it would be, under an old sheet in the far corner of the room. I pulled the cover back, revealing aged leather straps and a tarnished lock. The key turned with a heavy click, louder than I expected. I looked over my shoulder instinctively. Inside were old photographs, faded letters, a silk scarf, and something wrapped in newspaper. I lifted the scarf first. It smelled like perfume I couldn't name, floral, but aged, like it belonged to another decade. I unfolded one of the letters. Her handwriting. Before I could read more, the floor above me creaked. Then another sound, closer. Not above. Behind. I turned fast. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, wearing an oversized hoodie and leggings, barefoot again. Hair tied back, face bare. She looked softer, less calculated. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure you wanted me to." She stepped closer, not answering. Her eyes dropped to the open trunk. "You opened it," she said, not surprised, just watching me carefully. "You left the key. I knew you would." We stood there in the soft hum of the machines, the silence between us louder than anything. She reached into the trunk and took the scarf from my hand, pressed it to her face for a second, nostalgic. Then she held it out to me. "That belonged to someone who made me feel seen," she said. "A long time ago." I took it without knowing what to say. Steps above us. 2, then 3, someone moving. We both froze. "That's not the neighbor," she whispered. "That's him. Her husband. Early." I moved instinctively to close the trunk, but the scarf was still in my hand. She grabbed it, tossed it into a nearby laundry basket just as the basement door above creaked open. "Emily?" a man's voice called. She turned quickly, voice even. "Downstairs. Doing laundry." "Didn't know you were up," he said. His tone was casual, but his steps were coming closer. "Thought I'd grab coffee before I unpack." She looked at me, eyes wide now. I was cornered. If he came all the way down, there was nowhere to hide. I took a breath and made my choice. I darted behind the boiler, wedged myself into the narrow space between the wall and a shelf of paint cans. Dust filled my nose. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Footsteps on the stairs now. I couldn't see her, only hear them. "Still haven't finished sorting down here?" he asked. Her voice came smooth. I started. "It's just a lot." A pause. Then, "You smell like wine. I had a glass before bed." He laughed. "Still taste it." I clenched my fists. More small talk. Coffee. Weather. Plans. Then, finally, footsteps receding. The door creaked. Shut. Silence again. I waited 5 seconds. 10. Then she appeared, breath caught in her throat. "Why did you stay?" she whispered. I looked at her. "Because you didn't ask me to leave." She didn't smile, just stepped closer, lifted her hand slowly, touched the side of my face. Her palm was warm. "That wasn't just about the trunk," I said. "No," she murmured. "It wasn't." Her fingers trailed down, grazing my collarbone. Then she stepped back, almost startled by her own boldness. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a small folded note. "Meet me tonight," she said, placing it into my hand. "Back deck. Midnight. No lights." She left before I could say anything else. I looked down at the folded paper. A single word written across it. "Come." I stared at the note all day, folded in half twice, soft from her fingers, still faintly warm when she pressed it into my hand. "Come." One word. Enough to undo everything. But the house wasn't quiet anymore. Her husband stayed home. unpacked, made calls on speakerphone, walked from room to room like he was looking for something but didn't know what. At one point, I passed him in the hallway. He paused, eyes narrowing just slightly. "Did you sleep okay?" he asked. "Yeah, great." I lied. That was the first of many lies that day. By noon, my mom texted, "Change of plans, we'll be back early. Probably tonight." My stomach dropped. I typed back a quick, "Okay," and turned my phone on silent, then off, then shoved it in the drawer next to the guest bed and didn't touch it again. Because if I had it with me, if I saw her name light up the screen, I wouldn't be able to act normal. And I had to be normal. Pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. Pretend I hadn't hidden in the basement with her breath on my cheek and her fingers on my skin. Evening fell thick and slow. Her husband went out for a quick beer with an old friend around 9. Said he'd be back late. She didn't walk him out. Didn't even answer when he called her name from the door. I waited a full 20 minutes. Then moved. The back deck was quiet. Mist curled off the lake. The lights were off, just like the note said, but one candle flickered behind the glass door. She stood with her back to me, wrapped in a sweater, arms crossed, staring out at the dark water. When I stepped outside, she didn't turn. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said softly. I moved closer. "You already knew I would." Finally, she looked at me. Her eyes weren't playful now. No smirk, just tiredness and something else. Something older. "I filed the divorce papers 3 months ago," she said. "He doesn't know yet." Silence. "He stopped seeing me years ago. Just talks at me. Sleeps beside me, but never with me. The only time he notices anything is when I disappear for too long." Her voice cracked slightly. "And I'm so tired of disappearing." I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away this time. We stood there in the cold, our breath visible, skin touching in the dark. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "The other night." She shook her head slowly. "I regret not doing it sooner." The screen door creaked open behind us. She yanked her hand from mine, turned sharply, sweater pulled tight. It was the neighbor, standing half in the doorway, keys jangling in his hand. He looked between us, took a beat too long. "Didn't mean to interrupt," he said, but his voice was careful, measured. "You didn't," she replied quickly. "Just stepped out for air." The neighbor nodded once. "Sure. You okay, Em?" She smiled too fast. "I'm fine. Thanks." He lingered, then left. We didn't speak for a long time after the door shut. "He saw something," I said finally. "He's nosy," she whispered. "He'll think about it, but he won't say anything. Not yet." "You sure?" "No," she admitted. "But I stopped being sure about anything a long time ago." A pause. "You should go back inside," she said. "Your parents will be here soon." I looked at her. "Not yet." She didn't argue. Instead, she reached into her sweater pocket, pulled out a small black velvet pouch, pressed it into my hand. "What is it?" "You'll see tomorrow," she said. "If you still want to." I held onto it as I left her on the deck, standing alone in the cold. I didn't open the velvet pouch until the next morning. The house was already waking up. Suitcases dragged across the floor upstairs. My mom laughing on the phone. Her husband whistling in the kitchen, completely unaware that his wife had stood barefoot on the back deck hours earlier, whispering truths meant for no one else. I stayed in the guest room, door locked, curtain drawn. The pouch was soft in my palm. Inside, a necklace, thin silver chain, delicate pendant shaped like a keyhole. I ran my thumb over it, thinking it was just jewelry, until I flipped it over. There was a number etched into the back. 17. At first I didn't get it. Then I remembered Cabin 17, the guest bungalow on the other side of the lake. Empty all season. Belonged to friends of hers who'd left the country last year. She mentioned it once offhand back in spring. No one's touched it in months. Probably smells like cedar and ghosts. The keyhole pendant wasn't just decoration. It matched the lock. That night I didn't eat dinner with the others. Claimed I was feeling off. Stayed quiet through the noise, through the updates and stories. Avoided eye contact with her completely. But before I went upstairs, I caught her passing through the hall alone. Our hands brushed briefly. Just enough. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The next day, just before sunset, I walked the shoreline to Cabin 17. Branches brushed my jacket. The air was sharp, clean. The lock clicked open without resistance, and the door moaned softly as I pushed it inward. She was already there. Window cracked, sweater loose around her shoulders, legs tucked under her on the couch. A single lamp lit the room, dim and golden. Neither of us spoke. She stood, walked toward me, and that was it. No questions, no second thoughts. Just heat, hands, breath. The kiss was slow but certain, the kind that unravels every rule left standing. Her robe slipped to the floor without a sound. "I was hoping you'd look," she whispered against my ear. And I did. We didn't stay long. Maybe an hour, maybe less. But time didn't move the way it usually does. We left separately, careful. Her first, me after. No one saw. Maybe. Back in the city. Routine pretending to return. Phones lighting up with normal conversations. Work, school, errands. But something had shifted beneath the surface. Some hidden current we both now followed. Every Sunday morning, I walk through the park. There's a spot, quiet, near the water. On the bench, folded under the corner where her coffee cup used to rest, there's always something waiting. A note, a page torn from an old journal, a pressed flower. Once, a photo of the lake, out of focus but unmistakable. Today, it's a napkin, neatly folded. For words, written in her hand. Same place, same time. I press the napkin into my pocket. Behind me, wind stirs the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a door creaks open.